Over the course of these holy days, as we have moved from Reformation to this Living Christ Sunday, we have been singing this gospel acclamation. Many and great, God, are your works. It's an incredible and a beautiful hymn. However, I think on this Sunday it is also important for us to remember part of its history. Especially as we come into this Sunday with all that is happening around us in the world. It is a Native American hymn. And part of the legacy, the witness, the story around this hymn is that as the 39 people were led to the gallows in Mankato just over 150 years ago, they sang that hymn. In the midst of looking at death, and in the midst of a broken system and a broken world, these Native American people became witnesses to life beyond death, and they would not let go. Many and great, O God, are your works. They sing out in their Dakota tongue. And we come now into this space and we sing this hymn. We hear the bells and we absorb what it means to stand witness to this one whose life permeates our very being, this one who flows through all of creation. This image of this oh great star-gazing one. We come. And we look for that witness, that truth breaking into our lives and into our world this day. We are challenged, changed, renewed. Over the course of this week, a lot has been going on in our community. I know many of you have made the trek up to the north side. Some bringing coffee and food. Others singing and standing witness. Others posting on Facebook and wondering, what's happening and why? And there is this desire, this longing that people have to know the facts. Release the tapes. Tell us what happened. Today, I want us to pause for a moment to be recentered and regrounded. And I do this as much for me, I will be honest, as much for you. Because as we come into this day, we are longing to know so much about what happened in Paris, France, what happened in Mali, about the challenges in Nigeria, our sister synod to the Minneapolis area synod, where life after life has been lost in the name of extremism. We wonder what is happening in our own federal government, where people who are fleeing war and violence are being shut out. And so we come into this place wanting facts and bumping up against reality. And the reality is that as Jesus is standing there in front of Pilate, Pilate wants the facts. Jesus, who do you say you are? Are you really the king? Jesus, what have you been up to that's gotten you into trouble with all of these chief priests and with your own people, with the Judeans here around Jerusalem? Give me an account, plead guilty or not guilty, and let's get on with it. And Jesus isn't content to let them off the hook that easily. It's not going to be a listing of all of the healings that he has done. It's not going to be a telling of who has been lifted up so that they can hear or see, how many people have been taught on the hillside. Jesus steps into the place and reframes the argument into a conversation about truth. A conversation in which the facts may not line up with the greater narrative. The fact is that Jesus is in a whole lot of trouble for doing all of these things. The larger narrative is that he is one who is lifted up by God as an anointed, a chosen, to do something here and now, to reframe human understanding, to challenge the systems of the world, and to break them apart. So that new light can shine into the darkest corners where life has been lost, where hope has been forlorn, where people are struggling and let down. That is the truth that Jesus is going to put in front of Pilate. And he's going to challenge him, saying, are you part of the fact-finding mission? Are you part of this conspiracy that is going to withhold life and love and compassion from God's people? Are you one of those people who is going to hold fast to prison chains, to the bondage of this world, or are you going to let the light shine forth and the truth break in? That becomes the narrative and the reframing that Jesus gives to us today as his followers and of his witness. And it's hard. It is hard work because if you're at all like me, I am a total T on the Myers-Briggs. And I like to think through things, and I like logic, and I like facts. I like having a good book in front of me that I can read and highlight the details and what makes sense. And I like good order. Whether that comes from Scandinavian or German background, who knows, but I like it. And even when I know the world is broken and hurting, it's something that I like to cling to. And what happens when in that place Jesus comes and knocks me off my horse, knocks me down and says, the facts don't matter. The system and the world is broken, and I'm here to bring light and truth. What happens when Jesus enters into that narrative and says, some of the best leaders that you may know, who may be the best gall-darn people, still are part of a larger system in which God's light is not being allowed to shine, in which the truth of God being the King of the universe, the stargazing one, is hidden? What happens to you then? When all systems fail, when everything that you cling to in this world doesn't work, what are you going to do? And there is a recentering to say, how do you see the truth? When we are at our lowest, when we have experienced death or personal loss in our own lives, when we look at the world that is hurting and broken in so many places, and our news feed and our Facebook account can't seem to handle all of the grief or the anguish, we start to wonder, what's next? And precisely there, someone should enter into Facebook and say, guess what? Look to the truth. Unfortunately, the only people who are willing to do that tend to be people that I don't agree with in other ways, and it makes it more challenging. But as people of God and followers of God, are we willing to step into that place and let our world be rocked in hard and challenging ways? And to say that God is in our midst, serving and reclaiming a word, a truth for all the people. On this day in which we look to living Christ, I invite you to bring the brokenness, the pain, the hurt, the longing, the uncertainty. Come into this space and let it be a space where you are willing to let the light break in. And hear the words of Jesus who are going to challenge us. Challenge us, break us down, break us apart, break our hearts into 1,000 pieces, and then pull them together with a witness that God's love and presence is stronger than anything that this world has to offer. That becomes an incredible witness here and now. And from that, we can step back out. For those of you that I talked to at the food shelf last night, at the Food Shelf fundraiser, you know that I didn't go to North Minneapolis on Friday. I couldn't. I was angry. I was sad. I was hurting. I had been there over the course of 5 days that week, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I stayed home. And it was hard. It was hard to stay home. And yet I knew it's what I needed to do at that moment for me. Because I would not have been a good and a healing and a loving and a hopeful presence up in North Minneapolis. So after hearing negative comments and news reports that continue to trash one another and trash our government officials and trash black protesters and blast the police officers, I sat down and I wrote an email about hope. Because in that moment, that is what I needed to hear and to say. That in the midst of death and in the face of death, hope comes through. And that's what we have to be reminded of this day, is that Jesus isn't standing in front of Pilate at the beginning of his ministry. Jesus isn't standing in front of Pilate when all things are going well and hunky-dory. Jesus isn't standing there when hope is bursting at the seams. He is looking at the death sentence in front of him right then and there. And in the midst, he is breaking it apart and saying, this world, this ruling class from Judea and from Rome needs to be changed. The tax system and the tax code needs to be changed. The lives of people who are bearing the brunt of oppression and hurt and pain needs to be changed. All of the people who are blind and cannot hear and are being knocked down over and over again, it needs to be changed. The truth will set you free. And we stand with Pilate and we say, but what's the truth? But what is the truth? We need to recenter ourselves again today, to remind ourselves it's not about the facts. It's not about the facts of this world. The truth is about a God who loves each and every person, who steps in the place of our darkest despair and will not let us go, who gets down on his knees and washes the feet of the most dirty and disgusting people around. Smelly fishermen, right? Prostitutes. People who have been beaten down over and over again, who are tied to economic systems that aren't working. He gets down on his feet and he makes a difference and he claims the truth then and there. And he steps into Pilate's palace and is going to claim that truth on to death and beyond. That becomes our witness. Now, of course, today is also Stewardship Sunday. I want you to hear this story also in light of stewardship. By all accounts, Calvary Lutheran Church at 39th in Chicago should not be here. This congregation should have died a long time ago. It didn't have enough money. There had been upheaval within the congregation. There were lives that were broken. There were people who were hurting. It went through 11 pastors in 11 years for a variety of reasons. But by all accounts, Calvary should not be here. Those are the facts. The truth is, it's 2015, and Calvary Lutheran Church is here and is stronger and growing in ways that would not have been imagined 20 years ago. And for that we can say, thanks be to God. But if we were going to simply look at all of the facts on a paper, we would have said, done. The Synod could have written us off. The National Church should have said, don't give them any support. And yet, God breaks in and stands in the face of what this world tells us and shakes it up and shows us a greater truth. And look around you. Look around you at the people who are here and are making a difference in this community and in the world. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. The truth sets us free. We claim that truth, and we live into servanthood for one another, for this world, and we will not let go. And for that purpose, we leave these doors inspired, challenged, knocked down off of the horses that we rode in on, and we allow ourselves to be renewed by this God who stands in the face of the empire, who stands in the face of hatred and fear, and says, look to the truth. A great example of truth. And in that witness, we respond. We respond and we say, Amen. Go with us, O God, today and always, in the face of all that was, that is, and that is to come. For you are our Alpha and our Omega, the beginning and the end, the truth in which we are held and cradled